Podcasting for brands. IAmTheHow.com.
To 102.5.
Right, I'm going to fade Patrick out there. Patrick does the Framework Radio, great show. He curates sound art content from around the world. So if you get a chance to listen in to Patrick, you can do so on Sound Art Radio 102.5. You can tune in online, Framework Radio. But here we are, it's 5 o'clock, it's Wednesday, Sound Art Radio. I'm Dave Clark, I am the How, and I'm joined by Ellen from Nellie PR. So Ellen, how are you this afternoon?
Really good, thank you very much.
Great. So how's life in Teignmouth? Is it Teignmouth?
Yes, well, just across the water actually in Sheldon. But yes, it's, life is good.
Good. And what have you been up to today?
Well, today I've just been working, but then I had a meeting over at Doddington. So, it timed it well.
How convenient.
How convenient, yes.
And I know that we won't go into the details of the meeting, but it went well, I understand, which is always good. Excellent. So in a nutshell, tell everybody what it is that you do.
Okay, well, basically, I would describe it as helping people and businesses to step out of the shadows, and I do that through strategic PR and communications.
I like that, stepping out of the shadows.
That's it.
Great. So, we were talking before the show, and I think, I get all that. I understand about stepping out of the shadows. I think it's a much cooler way of saying what I try to say. Because I say something like, all businesses and organisations have got an interesting story to tell, but most tell the boring ones. You say you help people step out of the shadows. I like that.
That's right. I mean, a lot of the businesses I work with would probably describe themselves as hidden gems or the best kept secret.
Okay.
So obviously, if they are, that's hard for them to grow in the long term.
Yeah.
So that's why I quite like to approach it in terms of stepping out of the shadows.
So those are the kind of organisations that you seek, are they? You seek out hidden gems.
Yeah, I do. I'm often approached by people representing or working with hidden gems. So it's typically, medium-sized businesses or heritage businesses that have been around for a long time, or even professional services where, they've been going and there's a lot of perhaps upstarts coming into the market. Yeah. It's a lot more disruptive now, and they've realised that, they are potentially going to face a challenge, not necessarily now, but in the future if they don't step things up with their sort of PR and communications. That's when I come in.
Nice. So do you mean startups or upstarts?
Upstarts. I suppose, startups, but some of them are upstarts as well.
Oh, nice. Okay. So tell us how you got into the work. So a lot of people people understand marketing. They think they understand marketing. It's sort of pretty well understood, I think. Maybe misunderstood, but people are familiar with the term. Public relations, PR. Some people, they don't quite get that, do they? But I tell you what, before we get into that, just tell us how you got into it. So where did you grow up? The kind of jobs that you had. Where did your career start? The places that took you, and how you ended up doing PR.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born in Nottingham, so born and bred to Irish parents basically that came over. So big Irish community back in the day in Nottingham. So, I grew up in Nottingham, went to school, and I suppose the kind of jobs I've done all sorts really, from working in greasy spoons, being locked away in cupboards, chopping onions for hours at a time. I've had some bad jobs. Checkout girl for the co-op. Various things. But I've always loved to write and to read, and I've always used that as a bit of an escapism because I'm from a big family. I've got 5 sisters.
Right.
Not literally, but hundreds of nieces and nephews. So I've always found writing and reading a bit of an escape for me. Yeah. So I always wanted to be some kind of writer or journalism, go into journalism. So despite the fact that I was incredibly shy when I was little, when I was at school, I did actually go off and do quite a bit of work experience, the local newspaper, the Mansfield Chad. And so I really sort of enjoyed that. I think that started me off.
So how old were you when you did the journalism then?
Probably from a sort of about 14 onwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting, isn't it? So you're working with a hard copy newspaper,
yes.
going out and picking up stories? I mean, or were you office based kind of? What were you doing?
No, it was a really great work experience actually, because they got me out to go out with a photographer. I'd go with a reporter to the courts. So obviously people used to come in and say, make sure you get my name right in the paper.
Yeah.
Could be quite intimidating at times. So I literally had a good chance of doing a little bit of everything, from writing, having my first little name in the paper, so, and being in the office and actually understanding how a newsroom worked.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Because I mean, a lot of people, again, they can get that kind of experience, but it's normally a little bit later on, after they've graduated or whatever.
Yeah.
They find themselves in a newspaper environment. But to do that for kind of work experience must have been really cool.
Yeah, I think at school they were quite surprised, because I think most people were just, going down, the local shop or working with their parents,
Sure.
etc. And I was like, oh, I want to go into Mansfield and work for the local paper. So they helped to make it happen, and obviously everyone at Mansfield Chad was fantastic. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
Is it still going? Is it still?
It is. It's still going.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
So, and where did that take you then? So, when you sort of left the Mansfield Chad, what did you do then?
Well, I obviously then went on to university.
Okay.
So I was at university in York, University College of Ripon, York, St John, and I've always done lots of work experience. So even when I was there, I did work experience with VSO, Voluntary Services Overseas.
Yep.
Did journalism, PR, etc.
Was the course that you were doing related to this?
No,
direction?
not at all.
Okay.
My course was actually applied social sciences, English language and linguistics.
Oh, gosh.
But every Wednesday afternoon, you got the chance to go and do whatever you wanted. So there was photography. So I'd do photography courses, or you could use it to do work experience. So it's actually, there's a really good practical element. So I always had to work. I've been a cleaner. I've done all sorts basically. So I've always worked. I've always been like a grafter. I think that's always been instilled. Like my background and everything, to work hard.
Yes.
But then also I always tried to keep my hand in terms of doing writing, or it sort of fed into like doing PR and for sort of various charities and things. So I always did a bit on the side basically.
So when you graduated, did you go into a sort of PR agency, or did you start off doing your own business? Or
I actually struggled to get an initial sort of job. So my first graduate job was actually as a headhunter, which I absolutely hated.
Right.
And then I got offered a job with the Yorkshire Evening Press, I think, and but actually ended up going into public relations because a job came up and it was slightly better paid.
Yep.
So I sort of went for it, and that was with a local agency in York. And then, since then, I mean, that's a long time ago.
Sure. Yeah.
I've been in PR a long time, so I graduated in '95, so I've been working in and around sort of public relations, communications for, since then.
Were you always working up around sort of York and Nottingham, or did you end up with some of the big agencies like the Shanwicks and the Hill and Knowltons? And
I've worked in York, and when I moved back to Nottingham, and I've worked with agencies in sort of Derby and Nottingham. I did get a few job offers down in London, but circumstances.
Yeah.
My mum wasn't very well at the time, various things, so I sort of stayed, pretty close to sort of home. But then having said that, as a client, I've worked in-house for, big organisations like Experian, for example. So I have been a client and actually managed quite a lot of the top London agencies. So I've sort of seen it from both sides.
And you mentioned, writing. Has writing for yourself been part of what you do as well? Have you found time to sort of creatively write?
Yeah, I've always written, and I've got notebooks and starts of novels all over the house, different folders that Ellen Carroll, age 12, my first novel. But I would have to say, probably a few years back, I sort of slightly fell out of love of writing, just purely because I used to write so much for other people. I mean, I've ghostwritten books. Sure. I write opinion pieces, so I was constantly writing for other people. Yeah. In like a PR, thought leadership kind of capacity for other people. And so as a consequence, I did actually find it quite hard to then start writing creatively again. Yeah. So I took a bit of time out, basically. I went on creative writing courses at the local library, and I've sort of slowly found that love, that love has come back. So I do spend quite a bit of time now doing my own creative writing. I've started my own blog, and, Yeah, even just having more fun, I think, with my own writing, even if it's for my client newsletter, just bringing out more of me rather than, I think previously when I had to work with so many different corporate businesses, you always had to write in their voice.
Sure.
So now I'm just very much focused on doing what I like writing about and, using my own style.
Which is nice. Must be it's less taxing, isn't it, on the brain to do it from the sort of heart and from your head, as opposed to trying to adopt somebody else's sort of corporate values, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. And I tend to write now when I really want to, or where any inspiration comes. And yeah, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, great. So we're going to talk about what you do, but just before we do that, tell us about, so let's demystify, let's get PR out of the shadows. Okay, so I think, like I said at the beginning, people have I think personally, I think people have got to, if you say I do marketing, they kind of understand that. PR, some people get, some people don't. So how would you sort of define public relations?
Well, to me, public relations is very much around, relationships and reputation. I think why it's so hard to describe what it is because it depends on who you're working with, in the sense that people come to me when they've got a specific challenge in mind.
Right.
It might be that they're a heritage business and they're not known to a younger audience. So they need someone to sort of, help them to get that recognition and get them better connected. So I think that's why it's so difficult, to actually describe it, because it's different for different people.
Yeah.
It's very much focused on what is that business's or person's objective, and then how you actually then achieve that. And that is through a mixture of sort of public relations tactics, but it's sort of wider communications as well, and marketing. But it's PR very much looks at the bigger picture, whereas a marketer might just sort of focus in on one thing, which is sort of sales. You will look at the bigger picture in terms of the impact, in terms of reputation, or the fact that they're not necessarily known by the right people.
Yep.
And you'd look at that. You've sort of always got your eye on that, the bigger picture, basically, to make sure the client's sort of represented in the right way, or you actually tackle a challenge, straight on.
Do you think? Do you think the name is not antiquated as such, but do you think the word or the phrase, public relations, do you think that's a little bit, it belonged to a time a little while ago, or do you think it's still sort of current? I mean, people talk about marketing, social media, they talk about storytelling and narratives, but does it need an update, or do you think it's adequate?
Well, I think there's a lot of debate about it, and a lot of PR agencies don't even call themselves that now. They call themselves marketing agencies or communication, etc. But for me, I've got a soft spot for PR, in the sense that I think a lot of things like storytelling, etc., come from the discipline of public relations. And if you are good at public relations, you've always had to work harder, in the sense of when you look at content and content marketing, you're having to use that and perhaps sell in stories to a third party, like a newspaper, etc. Sure. So you've always had a more balanced approach. You've always focused more on the story and being objective, as opposed to telling the story of the business, which, if it's your own channel, for example, your own website, etc., you can quite easily go down the road of, focusing on you rather than the audience.
Sure.
So when I talk about public relations, people get it confused and just think of it just purely in terms of media relations and getting press coverage. And that is one element of it.
Sure.
But it's also the wider things around sort of, social and shared. It's, your blog content, it's your content. It's, the wider kind of storytelling, really. But ultimately, everything is about your reputation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where PR is at its very best.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about that in the context of your business in just a second. I'm just going to put a thank you out to some of the people who have been on the programme recently. So we had Lucy and Rob, excuse me, from Garden of Italy. They have a small, but I should say a niche wine import business. We had March and Pettit on the programme recently. That was interesting. And we also had Daphne from Essence of Exeter talking about social investment and different types of business models. So Sound Art Radio, 102.5 FM and online. Wavelength is a way to support Sound Art Radio. If you'd like to get your business on air, give me a call. It's Dave Clark. I Am The How. Just search I Am The How online or Sound Art Radio. And we can take it from there. Bookings coming in probably February 2020, which is great. So, Ellen, so tell us about the offer. So specifically, what are the things that you provide as a business?
Well, I provide mentoring where I work with either teams, in-house teams, or agencies, for example, or individually, whether that be with a business owner, managing director, or in-house or marketing person. Sort of support them to understand, what their objective is, what strategically they need to do in terms of their PR and sort of comms, and help them, enable them to do that for themselves.
Okay.
I also provide training, run workshops. I, of course, do my own consultancy where I will go into a business and I'll devise the PR and comms strategy and then I'll implement it.
Okay.
But then also what I do is I actually run my own PR and comms strategic online program, which is all about helping people to be a lot more driven in terms of and focus in terms of what it is that they really want to achieve in terms of their objective, business objective,
Okay.
and then the means in order that they can actually then go on and achieve that. So it's called PAYS, so it's P for purpose, A, because once you've got your purpose in place, you can then obviously create the right assets, which is the A. The Y is the yield, which is all about measurement, because it's so important that you do measure and able to prove the value of what you're doing. And the final step is all about sustain. So it's sustaining that activity for the long term, rather than it all being about one hits wonders. It's more about the strategic long term legacy, really, of what you're doing.
So that so just talk us through it again. So P is what was that again? The
purpose.
Purpose. Okay. So that's basically saying to somebody. I mean, it sounds obvious, but people don't always have the time to. Because I know from example, you can have 2 or 3 people in a room. And in a business, and you'll say, so what's the purpose of this particular project? And one will say, well, we want to do X, and then they'll say, no, Larry, actually, it is X, but we also want it to do that. And then somebody else says, guys, I thought we were, So it's really good, isn't it, to have that focus on the purpose?
Yeah, and that's where I can work with a business or actually enable like an in-house team to actually have the confidence and go to the board and ask the right questions, because often, especially with some of the in-house people I've been working with, they're being tasked to, generate leads, bring up sales, etc., and they haven't got that clarity from the business. So it's all about getting real focus on the objective, for example, to drive inquiries, increase sales, and then the how. So that combined is the purpose. So I think once people have got that focus, it's a lot more easier then to actually move forward, rather than literally running around like headless chickens doing this and this. It empowers you really just to stay focused.
I think that's a really interesting part of the whole process, because for me, because aside from presenting this program, I produce podcasts, and the central part of that, or the foundation of that, is the planning, which is the purpose. And it can take a long time. I mean, people always have this kind of feeling in their head, or that they kind of know what it is that they want to do, but actually they don't really very often. It's really quite a tricky thing to nail exactly what you're trying to do. And once you have, I understand, the assets are next. Is that right?
That's right. So once obviously you've got your purpose in place, it's then all about creating the right assets. So the key asset is obviously the plan itself. But then it's everything really in terms of like your photography, your stories. So for example, if how I'm enabling someone to reach their objectives is also for them to perhaps be a thought leader, part of their assets would be, their biography, would be their costings, would be their points of view, so their talking points, etc. So everything that's needed, the assets to actually fulfill their objective.
And then the tricky one, which is the yield.
Yes.
So, because I know, again, working with people over the years, I have to say, in various different marketing positions for some quite big brands and so on, you always get asked that question, you know, how much, bangs for the buck kind of thing. How many bangs am I going to get for my buck? Is that right? That suddenly sounds wrong, but I think that's okay. How do you measure that?
Well, the initial thing is really, rather than focusing on the measurement, it's actually, again, just go back to your purpose, because you can't measure what you don't know.
Right.
So, for example, if you've got an objective in place, for example, to increase inquiries or increase sales, you can put a goal around that, and then obviously then put the steps in to measure that. So obviously there's lots of things you can be doing to measure, but it's taking a realistic approach to measurement, because obviously some things you can't measure, some things you do have to go on like gut.
Yes.
But then there's some real hard things when, you know, yes, I've seen a 20% increase in inquiries, or people are coming through the door and it's footfall. It just enables you to have that measurement in place, but it's the right level of measurement. So you're not trying to measure everything, but you're measuring the most important things. So then obviously you can then go back to the board, or even just to yourself, to have the satisfaction to know that, since I started this, we have done X, and it's given us this kind of uplift.
Yeah. And then S, I've forgotten.
Well, that's all sustain. So that's about sustaining it for the long term.
Of course.
And obviously that's your activity. So that's a real mixture of things, like, for example, through your content.
Yep.
So it's consistent, it's sustained, especially if you're putting out a particular point of view, that you've got to sort of have the longevity to, you know, reach out to the right people over a significant good period of time. So you can build that trust and credibility, etc. So it's very, sustain it over the right time period. Yeah,
brilliant. So I get that, it's interesting because I fundamentally, I believe that a lot of smoke and mirrors out there, and actually a lot of what we do in this space is a process. It's all process driven. So I'm absolutely with you with the planning. I produce, I publish content, and then there's that. The sustaining piece I call the promotion, which is the campaign, isn't it? That's lots of different words for the same kind of thing, really. But it's just making sure that you've got the time and the resources to make it all work.
Yeah, exactly. And also the people that are on my program, especially if they're doing it for themselves, I can obviously inform them and help them to actually understand how long things take.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're working in a busy marketing department, etc., and you're being tasked to, produce this and write press releases and write content, and I can give them the tools to sort of at least go back and say, well, if you want me to do that, this is the time it's going to take.
Yep.
Rather than them feeling, worried and, overwhelmed with the whole sort of job that they've got to do.
Sure. And did I see on your website that you've got like PR tips?
Well, I'm going to say I'm laughing now because I've just realised that I haven't actually updated my blog for a while. That's so naughty, but it's only because I've been doing such a good job for my clients. But yes, on there's actually lots of regular tips.
Yep.
And I also, obviously, with all my training that I do, I typically create online resources. So everyone that comes on the courses, it's not just about the day or, the session that's just been delivered. I do practical exercises. So, for example, I've recently been delivering some pitchcraft courses, which is all about pitching to the press.
Right.
So in the sessions, people actually work on their own pitches, and then train them to actually how they can improve, so they can get better, more high-profile press coverage. But it doesn't stop there. After that, they have to then go and resubmit their pitch to me, and I'll give them live feedback.
Right.
So the idea is that people do actually make a change or do something different, and they get proper, genuine value from courses rather than going on a course and going home and saying, yes, that's great, and I'm going to do this, but then life gets in the way, and nothing happens. Nothing
No, quite. Excellent. Great. Well, I'll check back on the website, make sure those tips are updated.
I'm going to be quickly writing lots of things, aren't I?
Yeah, sorry about that. Great. Okay, well, I'm going to just give another little program plug. So it's a Wavelength weekly business show. As I mentioned before, it's to help fund Sound Art Radio, which in itself is not for profit. Reaches out across the community on air and also, of course, to your network online. just give me a call and get on the show. We've got Andrea from The Light Path coming up very soon. She's an astrologist. She's interesting because she's an engineer, I think, by training from Colombia. And she somehow got into astrology, and that's what we're going to find out. And that's what she does now. So she helps people who have all kinds of questions. She helps them find answers through the alignment of the stars. And it's amazing. So there we go. So and then we've got Jonathan, totally different. So Jonathan is multi-story thinking. Excuse me, I've got a slight cough. He is a architect and designer, and he's started his own series of podcasts. So we'll be talking to him about his business, about his podcast learning, and his plans for that. So look out for that. I'll obviously promote that before it comes on. So, Ellen, back to you. So when people say, why do you do what you do, what do you say?
I do it because I love it, basically. I left an in-house corporate job about 13 years ago.
Yep.
And luckily they actually came on board as my first ever client, so that was great. But 13 years on, I absolutely love saying I run my own business. I love learning. I love being in control of my own destiny, in the sense that if, I feel like I'm lacking on a skill set, I can put my own training plan together and, go there and do things. I love to feel valued, and I've just been really lucky to work with some amazing businesses over the years who really do not care if, I'm an independent person, working from home sometimes or in a coffee shop. I've worked with big corporates. They care that you do a good job for them.
Sure.
And so I've been lucky to work again with big corporates and also with individuals, as well as sort of really amazing, medium and small businesses. That have made a real difference to them. That's sort of the why. I just love it. I love their businesses, basically.
Yeah. So these what did you call them? Not niche businesses. They were specialty businesses. Can't remember what you said at the beginning.
Well, I work with lots of different types of businesses. I like the variety. I like working with challenging businesses, complex businesses. I've got a data background, so if I can get my hands on data,
right?
I love that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love working with heritage businesses that are facing some kind of challenge.
Okay.
Not necessarily now. They might be really profitable now, but they know that they've got to change, or there's something coming up. For example, they want to to grow. I love businesses that look after their staff, that invest in skills. It's just a variety, really, and I think it's nice to know that you've made an impact.
Sure. And so, what do they say about you? What's the kind of feedback you get?
Well, you'll have to go to my website again and obviously see and read all those testimonials. But everyone obviously says I'm good to work with, that I'm creative, etc. The strategic insight they really value. But I think the main thing is the impact.
Yeah.
Especially recently, because traditionally I've only been able to work with a very small number of businesses, which I work with very intensely over quite a long period of time.
Sure.
But because I'm doing a lot more in terms of the training and the mentoring and my own online program, I'm actually working with a lot more businesses, and the fact that they're able to come and say, we've now been able to increase our sales by, 60% or inquiries, we've never been so busy. That is so nice to hear that I can,
it's good. Yeah, no, it's good. It's part of that. Again, it's I think you said being valued is key, and also doing something that works is good, as it helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Essentially this stuff works.
Yeah.
And it's weird in the sense that I've only recently started doing it for myself, in the sense my mantra now is do for yourself what you do for others.
Yeah.
So I've actually gone on my own program and treated myself for the first time as my own client, and now I'm seeing the impact myself in terms of been invited to speak at events and conferences, increase sales. So it really does work, and I think being valued, I think, is important. working with, good businesses, which, them themselves make an impact, whether that be, creating great stuff or working, employing good people, or even just on an individual level where, I'm working perhaps with an in-house marketeer or comms person that it's just been left alone really to get on with the job. I mean, I've been there. So actually having me, by their side basically has been really good for them in terms of not necessarily confidence, but it's just having someone else to talk to, have additional ideas. So again, on an individual level, I think, I've really enjoyed that as well.
That's good, isn't it? And I like that we've got a sort of little collection here of sort of biblical sounding strap lines. So do unto yourself as you would unto others. And mine is, I am the how. The way.
I've just realised that it must be because the old Catholic background or something.
That's great.
There's obviously some kind of biblical reference in there, quite by accident.
I think it's good. No, it's it's worked for many years in other businesses, let's say. So, and do you work on your own? Do you work with partners, other people? Who else is involved in the offer?
I work by myself, but I've also got a virtual team that people support me. So luckily, over the years, I've built up great contacts, great connections with journalists, writers, people that are brilliant at their specialisms, podcasting, video. So I bring in the right team on the right project. Yeah. Some things I work just purely on my own. Other times I'll bring in, team members. But then I also work collaboratively with lots of different, fellow businesses. I love connecting people as well. I like, referring people, recommending people, bringing people together. So whilst in some ways I can be a bit of a lone wolf, I need that, connection.
Yeah, I get that. And so how do people find out more if they want to find out more? Okay.
Well, just basically go to my website, which is www.nelliepr.co.uk. And that's me.
And do you do sort of networking events or anything like that, or do you not?
I've started doing the odd thing, so you'll find me at the odd events, locally in and around Devon. I'm trying to get out a little bit more. I'm in London quite a lot, Bristol as well, and obviously I like to go up to my old patch of Nottingham as well.
Well, if you get over to, I don't overdo networking, but we've got the G12 meeting in Totnes, which Alistair runs each month. And there's also the Start Point Law. That's Rebecca from Start Point Law over in Kingsbridge. And that's, again, first Thursday of each month. That's actually quite good as well to see sort of like-minded people. It's a bit like fishing. You never know what you're going to get. But even if you don't get anything, it's quite good fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been going to quite a lot of events in and around Exeter, and also there's some great networking in and around Teignmouth as well. Yep. And I've met some amazing business people that have become really good friends as well. Yeah, and, good. I'm collaborating with them. Actually, I think on the 31st of October, which is obviously Brexit Day or Halloween, I'm actually taking part in a virtual summit with 5 other Devon-based businesses. So all about marketing and everything else like that. So it's nice to meet people and collaborate and work together.
So I'm going to call that Bralloween. You heard it first. That's it's not. I mean, it's no worse than Brexit. It's a confluence of it's bringing together two sort of confluencing words. Halloween is the eve of whatever, isn't it? That's a shortened version, and Brexit. So Bralloween.
I like it. I like it.
I think we're gonna let's use between us all of our PR skills to get that on the headlines tomorrow. It's a challenge. So, other than work, any time for hobbies or clubs, interests, anything like that?
Well, we've got a little boy, so he keeps us really active. Out and about. Yeah. I try to go swimming most days.
In the sea?
No.
Okay. No, just wondering.
Not yet. Yeah. When I was little, I was always forced into the sea, go swimming in
Yeah.
Ireland or off Lancashire coast
Oh God, yeah. That's a bit
in the
brutal.
freezing cold. But I haven't yet done it. But it does appeal because you do see quite a lot of people still swimming in the sea.
Yeah, well, it's outdoor swimming, of course, like a lot of things, is growing, and you're right by the sea, aren't you? I mean, you're
literally right by the sea.
Well,
but
there you go.
I need a wetsuit. Maybe I've gone a bit soft since I've been living in the south.
It's all about. Well, it's like all these things. You kind of do get used to it psychologically, and then if you're psychologically used to it, it helps physically as well. So swimming, great. Well, I share that interest. So what's next for the business? Projects and ambitions for 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, well, lots going on. It's been quite a period of change for me in terms of scaling up my business. Launching my own online PR program, which I did last year. I'm now expanding that, getting more people on board, and I've been asked and now going to be running it as sort of face-to-face workshops and group sessions. Yeah, just lots more really to do, a whole heap of work. Again, working quite closely with businesses, individuals, do more of the mentoring and just more of what I really love doing. Also on the horizon, I'm just about to finish off my accreditation with Watertight Marketing.
Right.
So that's more of a strategic marketing approach, which is really exciting. And I'm going to be a lot more involved with that. So yeah, absolutely loads.
Brilliant. Great. Okay. Well, we're just about out of time, so I'm going to say you've been listening to Wavelength on Sound Art Radio 102.5 FM and online. I'm Dave Clark. I am the How, and I've been talking with Ellen this afternoon. To get your business featured, search Sound Art Radio or I Am the How. That's all one word, or I Am the How, separate words. That'll work as well. You can even search I Am the How, or no, you can search, what was it? Slow Radio. Yeah, Slow Radio Podcast. That'll come up with a few hopefully interesting programs. If you like soundscapes, if you're a sound art listener, you might find a few on there. You can listen to this program again on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, many other podcast platforms. Please share, and again, contact me if you'd like to come on the show. So, Ellen, thanks very much for coming in. It's been very interesting, and wish you all the best for 2020. And like I say, let's make the most of Bralloween.
We will indeed.
Right. Okay. See everybody. See you next week. Podcasting for brands. I am the How.